here. Welcome everybody to this panel discussion. We want to talk about trends in the future, 2023, right before Christmas. We know that many people are very busy. Same here. We are writing emails all day long, everybody here in the panel, until everybody has done all stuff before Christmas. But it's time to reflect a little bit on this year, but to make it a more positive discussion, we would primarily focus on the trends for the future, for 2023 and beyond, because this year was very tiring. It was partly even horrible, even though many progresses have been done, right? Adoption takes place. We have regulation taking place. FTX showed us that over here in Europe, we have good regulation. So there are good points to see. We will address this as well, but to also give us ourselves and yourself a little bit of a positive mood. Let's dive a little bit into the future, what we are expecting in terms of trends in the future. On the description, we had Web3, digital assets and DeFi, but of course we also dive into NFT. We might dive into the digital euro topic in case time is there, and of course into the finally nicely arriving topic around tokenization of assets, which is now also unfolding with funds on blockchain systems, assets on blockchain systems, and so on and so forth. Let's get started. And with this, I would like to ask everybody here in the round to briefly present himself or herself, and please also add some details about your company such that we know who is speaking here, the expert on this, the expert on that, to give it some context. Anybody wants to get started right away? Actually, I'm not asking ladies first because this would be not political correct, right? To really give a weight here. Anybody can now raise his or her hand, and then let's get started. Who wants to get started?
I can go ahead.
Yes, please, Raphael. Nice to hear you.
My name is Raphael Hess. I'm a co-founder of Hard Stocks. Hard Stocks is a Liechtenstein-based company which basically tokenizes stocks. What we do right now is that we offer to retail users and everyone who wants to access it, basically to have an investment into like a car right now, which is an old-timer 300 SL. The special thing here is that we do it on a stock basis, like equity tokenization. So the retail user can really invest into retail stock here. Also, what we do is that we get it liquid. Our target market, which is important here, is the German market. We definitely focus on the European economic area, though, in for the steps, 2020 and 2023. Furthermore, what I did and where I come from is that we developed before the share registry in Liechtenstein in order to basically emit these stocks, these equity-based stocks. Right now, we can see in the future side that this is basically helping us to get a regulated shape with our German banking system involved in order to offer a fully regulated product to the market. I think right now the contemporary events really show us that this is needed.
Perfect. Nice to hear you, and also the focus on regulation on the traditional side concerning digital assets is nice to hear you. Who wants to go next? Maybe Alex?
Hey, of course. Thanks, Philip, and hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Alex, I'm 46, based in Frankfurt, born and raised, worked 20 years in capital markets. So I know financial products very well from the inside out and a lot of derivative aspects. Big blockchain fan, was amongst many people who dismissed it early 2010, until I came to realize the value of decentralized authenticity, let's put it this way. And I founded a company in 2020 early, to connect fans of sport or entertainment culture with products or with digital products, and using blockchain as the digital authenticator. So when you buy something digitally, that might be a ticket, a membership, a collectible, you actually know that it's true, that it's correct, that you're not being stepping into a fraudulent transaction, and that you can also sell it to someone else, to another fan, because usually when we talk about fans, this is something that is a super huge and super global market. And yeah, that's why we founded the company called Fancy, focusing on digital, at this point in time, digital collectibles.
Perfect. digital collectibles, and maybe I add one more sentence. You are trying to bridge the offline world and the online world, basically mapping out physical objects which you can touch, like an object in a museum, scanning it and bringing it to the NFT world. Things like this and much more. That's what you do. It's interesting to see the physical world meeting the electronic digital world here in the future. For example, you can then dump assets in the metaverses in the future, which you have previously scanned, right? Let's dig into this in the future, but it's very, very interesting. Perfect. Who wants to go next? Benjamin, Sarah?
I can go next. So my name is Sarah Godwell. I was working for BMW for approximately 9 years. I was first in the financial area and then 5 years in the M&A and corporations in the digital strategy department, more or less. And as you can hear, I guess, I got a flu, so I hope you can understand me properly. I will try my best. And then I decided to quit my job. And at that point where I quit my job at BMW, I didn't really know where to go, what to do. The only thing I really was sure about is that I want to work like full-time in the blockchain space. And so by chance, after I quit my job, I got an amazing chance to work for Wenigan Ventures. It's a venture capital company, and we only invested in Web3 startups. And this is what I basically did the last 8 months. And I learned so many new things. It was not only new in blockchain, but also in everything around venture capital, which was amazing. And yeah, so within the last 1 or 2 months, I pivoted again. And so there are two new things that are coming up. And one of the things is a new or a small consultancy, which we started just some weeks ago, and we will see how things are going. So we have our first calls with our potential customers. And about the second thing, I kind of will keep you posted, but I will start a new job from the 1st of January on, and I'm really excited about that and really looking forward to the next year. So 2022 was one of the hardest years, I guess, to start into crypto and blockchain, but nevertheless, it was amazing, and I'm really happy to be here now.
Perfect. So you have basically a background with investing, industrial corporations, yes, financial stuff, startups, and so on and so forth. Perfect. Benjamin, last word from your side.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, my name is Benjamin Schaub. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Intas Tech, which is a blockchain and digital assets consulting company. We mainly advise financial institutions regarding the integration of crypto and other tokenized assets. So what we do there is we look at their IT systems, at their processes, which impact do these assets have, how to integrate them. But we also look at the application of blockchain technology in general, and then on the impact on business models and the roles of financial institutions in the future.
So with this, I think the round is complete. We have Web3 / the NFT on behalf of Alex and Sarah. We have startup investing and also Web3 with Sarah. We have digital assets, tokenization, regulation with Benjamin and Raphael. So let's get started. Let's first dive into the domain around crypto assets and then do digital securities later to have at least not a chaos on these two super domains. What trends would you expect in the area of crypto assets, Web3, NFT, and so on in 2023 and maybe in the years to come? Alex, would you like to get started mentioning some trends, some hopes, some developments you see coming?
Yeah, sure. Can I just take a second to look backwards? Because yes, I think we're coming out of, Web3 is a term that is quite recently used. When I started in 2020, no one used Web3. No one knew what an NFT was. Suddenly we experienced a super hype in 2021. And in hindsight, and now in 2022, we have the crypto crash year. And with this, undoubtedly, everything related to digital assets also went down the drain. And now we get to understand that the hype was produced very much by I would say investing or let's say people who really want to make quick money, buying token without really understanding what it was. Some were lucky and got super rich. Some weren't lucky. They were investing in micro communities. Even if you look at the apes or Artifact or others, they were able to manipulate 5,000 to 10,000 people in a micro community, which is nothing compared to if you look at the Adidas, the Nikes of this world. But they were super successful. And now these companies are trying, either they get acquired such as Artifact by Nike, or they're trying to build a brand ecosystem such as Bored Apes, who have hundreds of partnerships, trying to, at the end of the day, also sell analog goods again. So they sell hoodies, nutrition and other stuff to normal people for normal consumption. And what we see in 2022 lately is that a lot of big brands are moving into this space because they have come to realize that, I mean, if Bored Ape can do this with 10,000 customers or others can do this with 5,000 customers, why can't we try to look at our product portfolio, have a strategy and start implementing it on Web3 and suddenly address millions of customers? And I think this is what we need at the moment. I mean, I'm a Web3 founder myself, and we have to understand that at the moment, the B2C customer for a broad mass adoption, so the B2C customer is not there. We have some crypto investors, which is also a very small population of total investors. And now, if you look at the normal B2C customer, the consumer, most of them don't have a wallet. So I think the big brands are helping us, the Porsches, the Gucci's, the Balenciagas. I mean, the Audis, the Mercedes, everybody is starting Web3 projects at the moment, trying to educate their customers. Look, this is what I'm doing. You can either be part of the community or you get a discount. I mean, there's many, many applications. So I think what's happening in 2023, and you can also measure this on the chain at the moment, if you see the total overall activity of new projects, there is also statistics available. The number has doubled in 2022. So we see much more activity, although or despite the crash. And I expect on the corporate side, an enormous activity, an enormous drain of resources. People from startups will start to work for corporates again for their Web3 departments. You will see consulting companies explode because they, of course, need consultancy services. So I think now is the time for the brands to move into this space and also help companies like us to educate the end customer. And then in 2024 and onwards, we will see that the broader end customer base will start adopting new products and becoming more interested in also other crypto assets. But I think the big brands are the ones who are moving and dominating the market now. My take.
Excellent points. That's you now address basically the specific subsection of the Web3 domain, which will be huge, right? You know, like meeting online, offline. It's a very interesting point what you mentioned, also talking about trends, because 5 years ago, everybody talked about B2B solutions. You know, everybody remembers energy, logistics, medical stuff, and so on. And all this didn't happen. But now what you're mentioning, I think that's the right interpretation of what's going on there. Yes, blockchain is for companies, but not for B2B companies, except finance. And yes, blockchain is for companies, primarily for the customer B2C sector, where people are selling goods to individuals. But once you have suppliers, you know, like one automotive supplier selling something else to another automotive company, that blockchain doesn't make sense here. Only maybe for some sections like carbon tokenization and other things, but not for process efficiencies. I don't believe in this anymore. For this, I have seen too many consortiums going down the drain, being stopped, being abandoned, and not showing up anymore. That's why I'm saying this so harshly. What about more Web3 crypto domain? Why am I saying Web3, by the way? Because actually crypto and Web3 from a technological perspective, it's both all the same. But in case you talk about crypto, then everything's like, oh, come on, crypto, go away. This will never recover. But Web3, let's do Web3. That's much better. So at the core, it's all exactly the same. But people, for whatever reason, like the syllable Web3 and they start hating the syllable crypto. That's why I emphasize Web3 and not so much crypto. But what other trends will we expect, which can we see in the Web3 crypto domain now on the DeFi sector, for example, on the Bitcoin, Ethereum subsectors and so on? Sarah, what's your opinion here?
So from my point of view, and maybe I would rephrase it a little, put it a little different way. So I've seen many startups within the last several months. And so maybe it's the question for me is, what will be the biggest trends where startups will found, or where new startups will start or growing in that space? And so from my point of view, there are some clear spaces that are really relevant and important for the next year. And for example, one of the really important things might be, or I saw several startups in Africa. So growing in Africa, especially regarding payment systems and education, because like in Africa, there are so many talents, and since Web3 or crypto is really remote, it's a huge possibility to include them and to use their work power or their workforce. And then there's a trend around digital identity, because I think it's getting more and more important that the people who use Web3 and are in that space, that it's secure for them to use everything and to go through all the possibilities that the Web3 is offering. So I see many startups in that area. Then we have a lot around tokenized assets, and I'm pretty sure Raphael can tell us a lot more about that. I see many startups in the infrastructure area, because I think there's still like cross-chain interoperability and those things. They are still, I mean, a lot of things had already been made and things are growing, but of course there are still huge problems. And from my point of view, there are two more huge topics, and one is blockchain and AI. I think those things are kind of coming together closer and closer within the next year. And I think I've heard already people saying like in 1 or 2 years, maybe this is more or less the same, so that those spaces are coming together very close. And I've heard only within the last 4 weeks about 2 or 3 startups in that space and trying to bring blockchain and AI, for example, regarding usage of drones together. And the last biggest space, and I can talk later a little more about that, is everything around refi, so regenerative finance, which is a really important trend for 2023 as well.
Yeah, I think that makes very much sense. It was also on my list. We so far missed a little bit the buzzword metaverse, I think, but it's basically indirectly included in what you have mentioned previously. Interesting there, Sarah, you also mentioned the topic around financial inclusion with startups in Africa. I actually also now think that this will be huge. Why is this? Because now point to point on Earth, you can transfer money even into the most rural village somewhere on some random continent. You just need to have electricity and a cell phone device. And you don't necessarily need to have Bitcoin there as a volatile asset. You can also do this in US dollar stable coins, right? And This is extremely powerful.
Exactly. And especially for Africa, there are still many people unbanked. And with the blockchain technology, everybody can be part of payment systems. And so this is why the market will be a strong market within the next year, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, now let's switch to the domain of digital securities / digital assets, tokenization of all kinds of regulatory compliant formats. Raphael, would you like to get started about what are the trends you are seeing, and then Benjamin adds on?
Well, thank you, Philip. For building up this question, I would say let's look at what happened in 2022 in order to see and identify trends, what is happening in 2023. Well, right now we have basically seen that regulatory companies and also the money where I put my money in is really important for us, because we also got disappointed in just like believing that something is good for us by just having seen like the marketing happening around us. So what we do and what we think is that having a full prospectus, like a full explanation on what's going on, having regulatory authorities really screening on what's going on to see, validate, and agree that what is going to be shipped and sold to the customer has been validated. So we see like this independence validation is really important. What I do believe is that people will be educated more on what to buy. So what they do is basically they will check out where is my advantage to buy something in. And we can see this, for instance, in equity for several reasons for the educated customer. And also we will see that people will check, how can I get into an asset? How can I get out of an asset? These are really important questions, as well as customer service and where can I verify on what's going on. I think this is really important to us. So this is on the one side happening. On the other side, it's also making more accessible or like creating access to goods which I couldn't have before, which is, I think, really adding value to the customer here. On the one side, it's really touching and buying into assets which is just like a dream good, for instance, like an old timer, which I cannot buy right away because it's like $1 million object. Or on the other side, it can be patents, it can be licenses, it can be just like everything which was basically encapsulated in something which was not accessible for the retail customer. As well, I think it's really important to also notice that when you have an equity stock, which you can basically configure and manage on the blockchain, it's on the one side more transparent. Of course, on the other side, it's more efficient to really manage one of those stocks right away when you can just like have one transaction to make things happen. I think this is definitely a trend everyone knows about, and it's really where innovative laws are extremely important to use them and also to use this efficiency which is coming out of it. So maybe I can bring up one example. Of course, we have like on the one side Liechtenstein, on this side Germany with the EWPG, who really try to be innovative leaders in this whole world, basically to have a really regulated ecosystem coming into it. But we can see right now they have different levels of innovativeness because on the Liechtenstein side, which I basically took care about, it's that we can see that we have like this analog digital thinking of, for instance, like the token container model, where I can just like put some value into something and basically make this accessible. Right now in Germany, of course, it's like going forward, but we see that some promises about the speed and how things are happening are not really being delivered.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Liechtenstein started very, very speedily with regard to the regulation, but now after these 3-4 years, we do not see wide application of the law, right? There are only very few companies like yours who are using the law over there, and you are only using this because you are able to passport products into the entire European Union. In case you would not be allowed to do this, you would not use it, right? And the EWPG, that's now where we are moving on to Benjamin, I think is an innovation driver because it allows us to do specific things. And what I heard from bankers in Frankfurt and people in the field, there is even planned a so-called association for, I have to talk about this in German, an association for Kryptowertpapierregisterführer, basically where all these companies are then being switched together and, I don't know, articulating their lobbying stuff towards politics and so on and so forth. And this is very interesting because you only see such associations occurring, or at least thinking to be occurring, when there is some demand, when companies are starting to do something and so on, in case you have like significant mass of companies doing this. So therefore, Benjamin, what trends do you see?
So I think it sums up everything that has been said so far, that it's about accessibility, and there we are still building up infrastructure currently happening in Germany. So especially crypto custody, because for me, every blockchain use case needs a wallet or a wallet infrastructure, and this is currently happening. So we have the big German players like DK Bank, DZ Bank, DWP Bank, they are all setting up crypto custody. And for me, this is really the positive sign this year. So despite market cap is going down and prices are going down, that this infrastructure is being built and could then mean the access to Web3 products, to NFTs, or to tokenized securities. And I think this is also the lesson from this year, and also the big opportunity for financial institutions, given the recent events, that they need to get in the game in general. They need to be part of it and become, in my opinion, definitely gatekeepers for retail clients into all of what is happening in Web3. Of course, not everybody will try to use a bank for it. There are a lot of clients or customers who rely on the Web3 concept, where they say, okay, I need my own wallet and so on. But when we really talk about mass adoption, for me, it comes down to the custody case, because as Raphael said, and you, Philip, we now have a lot of good regulations. We have them in Liechtenstein and Germany as well. We will see them on the European level in the next year in 2024 with DLT pilot regime and MiCA. So you can actually do a lot regarding blockchain use cases and assets on the blockchain system, but therefore you need infrastructure, and this has been taking time. But I can say for the German market that this is happening, and we were able to observe this year. There's bigger players like Citibank, for example, are also integrating custody solutions. And I believe if we really solve the puzzle there, that we have more gatekeepers into this ecosystem, and obviously gatekeepers that are trusted and so on, that we will see a lot of use case with simply speeding up next year. So this is my guess, but this will probably happen in the second half of 2023.
Yeah, I would agree. Lots of stuff happening. Alex, I come to your question in a second. What I find interesting, what you have said, Benjamin, is that you are seeing the regulation in Germany really allowing things to be done, and then it takes time until the people really understand it, and then things are starting to happen. And this took us 2 years, right? 3 years. And it's interesting because back in 2018, banks said that we are now implementing blockchain and it will be until the end of the year until this will happen. This was then end of 2018, right? And then, but it needed the law, it needed the socializing with the law, and then it needed investment to make things going. And after Alex expressed his points, I wanted to then pose the questions: how are we situated for this in Germany? Because regulation is here and there, I think, good. But is it good enough? Is it maybe too harsh? Let's discuss this in a second with a quick round. But before this, Alexander, please, you raised your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to lower my hand. But I wouldn't like to contradict Benjamin, but I'd like to maybe phrase it, at least from my point of view, a little bit more distinct, because I think we have to distinguish between investable assets. And there you're totally right. We'd have to talk about custody. We have to talk about security. We have to talk about investability, etc., and also UX, by the way, because investing also has to become easier. But I think people are used to invest their money, and they do this because they want a yield, and this has to happen in a known framework. But Web3 is not necessarily only that, and this should not be applied. So the investable asset user experience should not be applied to Web3 as a whole, because Web3 is a technology, is not linked only to investing, but is a paradigm to create digital authenticity. And I think this is the big showstopper at the moment for a lot of companies, that everything has to be run through BaFin to be safe on the regulatory side. Otherwise, you cannot run a Web3 startup in Germany if you don't. And you are liable as a Geschäftsführer in Germany if you don't do that. We have done it a year ago. It took us a year to be deregulated officially by BaFin. And it took us 10,000s of euros from a law firm. And at the end of the day, we are creating, I mean, a lot of companies, not only us, but a lot of companies, all the big brands, I will say, they are not creating investing products or investment products. They're creating entertainment and consumer products. And it's not like everything has to sit in one wallet. Imagine everything that you do in the digital authentic world is sitting in a Deka wallet. I mean, oh my God, you know how few people will actually start adopting that? Maybe for your investable assets, yes. But if you want to have your Starbucks token, your Mercedes token, your whatever, I mean, your digital wearable from Artifact, this is never going to happen in a Deka wallet, never ever. And this is never going to ever be regulated by BaFin. It should not. Imagine eBay would be regulated by BaFin. So I think for the mass adoption case, we should really clearly distinguish Web3 is a consumer gig and an investment gig. And the investment gig needs its rules and regulations, but for mass adoption to happen, I don't think this is the path. I think we need an easier user experience, what Sarah said earlier on, interoperability, that you can move from one, let's say, brand territory to the next and just have one wallet. And maybe also go from one metaverse to the next and have one experience, and maybe pay your Starbucks cappuccino with Mercedes points because they are interchangeable. Maybe that will work, but I think investing is only a very small portion of life. and Web3 is the entire life.
That's a very interesting point. Anybody wants to not reject this, but maybe comment on this, right? Because I think it makes very much sense what you have said. Raphael, you raised your hand. You want to point out something?
Yeah, exactly. I'm completely with Alex here. I just want to add one point, which I think built up in 2022. It's basically, I do believe that the mass of people basically will have built up a little bit of a reluctance right now versus a wallet. So I do believe that the mass is really looking and reaching out for services which will make a wallet go away. They will really just like love an easy login. They want to have it serviced. They want to have it easy across each services. And they just want to use basically blockchain as an infrastructure, not really knowing maybe that this is a blockchain underneath. So I do believe one of these really important factors for mass adoption, which is, I think, crucial and also will definitely happen, is that one of these big companies will just like forward their whole systems into this like blockchain world, like Reddit did it, or maybe Twitter is going to do it. Like there's a couple of examples which might be around the corner, which will basically bring a ton of people to the blockchain. Maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, but this is definitely one of those enablements which we might see in the next year.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but you always have to ask the question, what exactly are you doing with blockchain? Yes, you can do entertainment and communication, but as soon as it involves some kind of carrier of value, money, doesn't matter whether it's the euro or Bitcoin, then immediately you need the Deka wallet, right? So how else should it work, right? It's really... Yes, you can collect all kinds of things which are not relevant from a monetary perspective, but as soon as you're somehow triggering the monetary perspective, then you are hit by MiCA and especially by the transfer of funds rules. Who else wants to comment on this?
Yeah, I also just wanted to add something, but I liked it a lot was what Alex and Raphael said. So I think complexity is still one of the most important obstacles for people and also for retail institutions to really enter the blockchain space, because it sometimes is really difficult to handle everything, especially if it comes to the DeFi space. It's so hard to understand those things, and everything evolves very fast. This means if you start learning, you always have to keep up. And this is something really, really tough if you're not full-time in that space, because things are changing so fast. And if you learn something like half a year ago, maybe the knowledge is already old. And so there's still only a small number of real world use cases. I mean, those real world use cases, they are growing. And of course, especially for us being full-time in the space, we know that they are growing. But I hear the question very often from outside that there are no real world use cases. So I always have to explain. And I think this is something really important, that the mass of the people have to understand what you can really do with the technology. And until people don't see that, there's always like people don't believe it and they are unsure and they don't know what to do. Another point is like security concerns, that people are not sure what to do. And everybody knows if I type in a wrong number, for example, then my funds might be lost. So people are unsure about what to do. And maybe one last point is like performance issues, because some blockchain-based systems can still be slow or have like really high fees. So really high fees, and that might be really hard for some people to enter the space, or also for some institutions.
Yeah, also very good point. Let's talk about the killer applications for the future, because Sarah triggered the thought currently saying, okay, in case there should be adoption, so where is the benefit of all this? Is it for example, Raphael's case, storing value in the future in terms of real assets? Is it about tokenizing assets? That's basically then also related to financial advice, asset management on a private level, corporate level, that would be Benjamin. Or is it around the metaverse, where people are getting part of virtual environments? Suddenly it's becomes something like a virtual world, like a computer game. And from gaming, we know that hundreds of millions of people are playing games, right? So there must be a benefit in the terms of computer gaming, right? At least with the huge share of male people in computer gaming. So there must be benefits out there. Sarah talked about the financial inclusion part. What key benefits do you have in mind which could attract masses in terms of, then triggering trends for the future. Any idea? I can give it a start. I really think that the stable coins are made for cross-border payments. And the more I think about it, the US dollar stable coins, they will really increase financial inclusion with the side effect, for example, of allowing freelancers from all over Africa joining the worldwide workforce as long as they are able to receive US dollar stable coins, for example. And with this, I mean primarily the blockchain workforce. Not digital securities, but the decentral ecosystem where people are building all kinds of things, metaverse, NFTs and stuff like this. Why not including there hundreds of thousands of people working from all over the world who have been excluded from the workforce so far because there wasn't PayPal existing, right? And therefore, stable coins, in my mind, are a huge creating a huge benefit. And with this, in my mind, they will be discovered as a killer application for the application in financial inclusion areas. That's one of the thoughts I have. What killer applications do you see? Raphael, yes, please.
I think it's definitely this word which we pointed out before, the interoperability. It's, I think, bringing together multiple use cases to one wallet, maybe. It's, for instance, the identity. Right now, it's really like annoying to sign in either way with one of these big corporate firms like Facebook or Google. So I have to give away all my data, or I have to punch in all my data myself, which is annoying. How about that we can just like access something by just bringing our wallet there? And sometimes it might be even more, like adding value to it is finding out, who are you? Like, do you have like a stored value maybe, which you can use as like a backup or like to back some loan? Or is it the gaming token where you can identify right away that this is maybe a friend which you met before in the metaverse? Like the ideas which can happen here are like really unlimited. That's the amazing part about it. And I think it's really this like cross use case situation, which is one of the key applications for the whole ecosystem. And I think it definitely comes a lot with the identity which you will carry around, which will just gain efficiency when you walk around the internet.
Interesting. So that's the identity part. Other thoughts triggering trends in the future?
Yes, maybe.
Somebody has to mention the metaverse, actually, right? Please.
I'm not mentioning the metaverse. So if somebody else wants to say something else, please go ahead. But I have another thought. So
no, go for it.
So I read a quote, and I think this quote is just amazing. It's from Charles Hoskinson, who is the co-founder, or no, he's the founder of Cardano, I guess. And he said something like, I'm not 100% sure about it, but something like, the goal is to align the greed of humans with positive outcome. And I like that quote so much because on the one hand, people really want to earn something because we all have to pay for everything. And so people really want to earn money. But at the moment, I see a very strong trend. People they want to do something good. They want to do something positive and something for the environment. And so this is like the positive outcome. And it's a niche topic, but I think it's a very strong niche topic. It's everything around the refi market, because those two things are coming together on that market. And I think this is amazing for the next year. And I was on the virtual carbon conference last week, and I learned a lot because I'm not an expert on refi. But one of the things that kind of stuck in my mind was that the voluntary carbon market is expected to cross more than 50 billion in 2030. And I learned that it's easy to calculate it because more than 2,000 companies made like a net zero pledge. And if they all become net zero, then the market has to grow that far. And if this is really true, I think there's like this is going to be huge, and many people will work in that area and will be an important case for the blockchain, because blockchain helps in that case with transparency, and people can kind of show that they are carbon zero and that they are good humans. And so I think those two things are coming together in that area, and I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, interesting point. And what else do you have to raise as a point?
I would add, not as a killer application, but when we talk about the usage of blockchain technology for financial institutions, and I think I don't really see the killer application, but there it's more really like, okay, you can probably issue something faster and cheaper. You will have less intermediaries. You can settle a financial instrument faster. So this is definitely going to happen. We can also observe this year. A lot of stuff happening. DTCC has a solution, HSBC, JP Morgan, all of them. And this is also something I find quite interesting, using private blockchains. So you can see that this is a bit decoupling from what's going on public blockchains and Web3, metaverse, and so on. However, I'm very excited if this will have to merge at some point in the future to for example, Ethereum. And if we then talk about, so this is the financial institution part, and on the other side, I think we really have, for me, it's more like blockchain technology as such is the killer application, because when we talk about the metaverse or Web3, then for me, it's really about giving people the power to own stuff, to really be on their own. So I simply wanted to make the point that for me, this is quite of separate things happening.
Yeah, you are right. You know, there's multiple things happening at the same time, and I also would like to point out the following thought I had in the last couple of weeks. Do we really see corporate adoption, or do we see individual adoption? Right? It's very interesting. You know, the law is being made such that at some point of time there might be like an entire industry of crypto, hopefully arrives in Europe and grows and creates working places and so on. But, you know, come on, where is this industry? You know, I don't see it. But at the same time, you see thousands of freelancers contributing to all kinds of networks. So adoption is here, also in the workforce, but on an individual level where people are individually deciding to participate in all this. But it's only slowly starting in the corporate domain, right? And will this be different in the future? Will the corporate adoption speed up and then overtake the individual adoption? Not so sure, right? Maybe it's just two various trends, and one is a little bit slower, the other is faster, and it just progresses like this. Any thoughts here?
I would actually
only one quick thought. Normally it's the other way around. The institutionals are first, and then the retail investors are coming. And this time it's the other way around. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, Raphael, that was only my quick thought.
Well, I think it's something great to add here is, on the one side, you talked about the inclusion part on maybe Africa, like banking the unbanked people. This is definitely like an individual level, like it's driving actually the masses is moving forward because they will store their values there and transfer the values there. But I think on a really global scale, we have to also keep in mind, for instance, the example of China, where they do actually install a stable coin for everyone and pushing it out like over time. I do really believe this is definitely affecting corporates as well as the individual level. And China is a big player on this world. I really do believe that something like this can be a strong driver on a global economic scale.
Yeah, that's, you know, but the point is here, maybe China is the only country on our planet who has a philosophy that they can execute enterprise blockchain solutions. You know, maybe we can't in Europe because we are distributed, democratic, and so on and so forth. And so you have to have a Chinese regime to integrate enterprise blockchain solution at that scale, right? I'm not sure, but maybe European Central Bank is showing us something different, but they will not run it on blockchain basis.
No, but I think it's important to stress out that more and more financial institutions, especially, they are joining it. And on the corporate level, and we had this discussion before, Philip, it endures. Yeah, you have to it takes a lot of years actually that people try to understand it at least. Yeah, you mentioned it before. We had the crypto custody regulation like 3.5 years ago. And now first bigger banks are tapping into it. So it really shows that on a corporate level, it takes a lot of time, even if it's hard to acknowledge. If you're sitting in the blockchain space and you think, guys, what are you doing? And we can really observe it because we are talking to clients for several years. And now you see, okay, they are building up first positions around digital assets and so on. And this has taken for 2 years maybe. So there's a first and second and maybe 3 people now are working in a digital asset team. And this trend will obviously continue. But you know, as we are a bit longer in the space, the discussion is another. For them, now you mentioned it also, Philip, we have this huge use case, blockchain registries, blockchain-based registries. And now the financial institutions are really looking at it because it abolishes the CSD-based markets that we are used in Germany and in some other countries in Germany. But now they are all saying, okay, let's use blockchain, but it's probably better in a private blockchain. So they are having now the discussion that we maybe in the space had like 3 or 4 years ago. And I therefore simply want to mention that, yeah, we have to be patient. I think it's coming, but on the individual level, I think it will even more accelerate more. Like Raphael, you said before, because blockchain will evaporate, it will be somewhere in the background. People will simply use applications, and blockchain is part of it, is the backbone of it. Yeah, and as soon as we get there, we have a great UX. Alex, you said that. Then things will on the individual level increase even more.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. So some weeks ago, I estimated the worldwide, the German blockchain market for advisory. You know, like consulting, lawyers, and so on. And we came to a rough guess of 150 million, maybe 100 million, 150, maybe 200 million. It really sounds like a big number, but it's not when you compare it to the IT expenses of banks, right? And it's close to zero. And it also is close to zero when you compare it to the individuals who are investing in crypto assets directly, because you have 8 million Germans having purchased Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And with this, the 100 million market size for consulting and advisory on the other hand side really feels microscopically small, right? Okay, further and last points by anybody. Maybe we do a final round of questions. Are you looking forward to 2023 and why? Silence.
Yes, I can.
Okay, yes, please, Sarah, please start.
So,
yes.
I'm fine, I can start. So I'm looking forward to 2023. I mean, 2022 was really hard for all of us. And I made a poll on LinkedIn like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I asked the people whether they think that Bitcoin is at approximately 16K, despite or because of and only all those things that happened. And it was funny because it was more or less 50-50. And for me, it's clear despite, because if we look at the macroeconomic situation, I mean, the whole market is down. And for example, like the stock market or the tech fund from Cathie Woods, this is all down like 80%, like similar ranges like the crypto market. And so I think money is a network effect. And so the market will grow for further and further. And yes, it's a hard time, it's a tough time, but Bitcoin survived so many things like FTX and Terra Luna and 3AC and everything around that. But we are still standing and we are still building and growing. And so this is clearly a positive sign for me. And I believe in the technology and in the market. I'm looking really forward to the next year.
Perfect. Nice words. Okay, who's next?
Okay. I'm curious for 2023. I'm not so sure if I'm looking forward to 2024 instead, because 2023 I think is going to be tough. I think economically we have a big tsunami actually hitting economy. We have high interest rates. We have a lot of ripple effects from Corona, post-Corona, and now the liquidity drain. And this has to be washed out of the system. What we saw the last 10 years, all the QE. So, I mean, and everybody who is in macroeconomics and also financial investing is telling me the same thing, which is kind of weird because when everybody's telling the same story, usually the opposite happens. But all the experts I'm talking to are painting a pretty dark picture. So I'm looking forward for this to go over and then continue, because of course life goes on. I think for us, it's time to continue building. It's time to continue trusting and building on the right thing. Maybe have stronger corporate partnerships. I think B2C adoption is going to take a bit longer. So I think it's a very interesting year. One of the most interesting years in my life, actually. I'm really curious how things are going to turn out, and we haven't learned this in our school books. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
I
Indeed.
mean, maybe one sentence is, I think 2023 is going to be tough as well, but I'm still looking forward to it. So
You
this
don't
is
have
what.
to excuse yourself
No,
for the
just saying.
optimism.
I would not say, I would never say that 2023 will be like a very easy year and everything is rising and sunshine and everything will be easy. But I'm just positive. So, but I totally agree on what you said.
Perfect. Yeah, finally, Benjamin and Raphael, please.
Yeah, as I said before, I'm quite optimistic, not in terms of prices and maybe market cap, but as I said, infrastructure is being built and adoption is coming, and the infrastructure is not being built, you know, by I don't know, but by really big players in the field. So therefore, I think if the overall market situation allows, then it could be an okay year. But as I said, probably concentrating of the second half of the next year. But for me, really, the great thing is that the next bull run, whenever it will be, we will have the best infrastructure available and the infrastructure reaching out to the most clients or more clients than ever before. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic. And by the way, for example, the European Commission had a tender out this year where it looks on embedded market supervision, where it, from the European Commission view, Ethereum, for example, is the key blockchain infrastructure where they say, okay, we need to observe what is happening and being settled on Ethereum to be able to to have an idea what is going on in the whole DeFi space. So this for me was also a sign that even on this scale, it's understood that there's no way around blockchain and Ethereum in this case particularly.
Interesting point. And then, Raphael, you have the last words, and then we are closing this round.
Thank you. Maybe to point out, I think 2023 is for us, or like from my side, is going to be a great year, because for us, it's going to stick to the strategy, is going to be the strategy. Right now, we are on Ethereum, Benjamin, with our token. So we are, I think, at the right place. I think we have a great UX hiding the blockchain, really showing our users that it can be easily done. It's also that in 2022, everyone learned what inflation actually means with prices rising up that much. So looking out for inflation protection. And I think really these use cases can gain a lot by the end user when they seek for protection, when they seek for values which they can stick to, which are protected, which are regulated. And I really do believe that with hard stocks that we will go straight forward into 2023 with an optimizing strategy.
Yeah, I'm also optimistic, by the way, because it has really gone down a lot this year, and at some point of time, it cannot go down so much further. It's not possible, not with such a brilliant technology. And on behalf of the Frankfurt School, you know, we are seeing endless people of wanting to join this entire ecosystem. People want to get educated. Executives want to get educated. Workshop inquiries, study programs, talents programs, you know, like endless people. Even with the talents program, we will have 6,000 applications up until end of this year, you know, 6,000. That's really massive. And that's smart people wanting to join the field. So therefore, I'm very optimistic, but maybe it takes more time than we all expect. Okay, thanks very much. Have a very nice and cozy Christmas. Let's relax and get ready for a roller coaster in 2023, right?
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thanks, Philip.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for staying here.